honestly felt like a cage. I had a really hard adjustment period in the first couple months. Not only was an adult on my own for the first time, but I was also learning how to work in this environment where everyone else was also trying to figure out how to work. And while I was struggling at my new job, I would kind of log off at the end of the day and turn around and open this portal to this amazing creative world where I was picking out fabrics and shapes and different textures. And I think that creative outlet helped me get through that period. My advice is screw the research.
Hello, hello, and welcome to Growth Strategy. Today's guest is Sabrina Rohde. She is such a powerhouse. She is brilliant, ambitious, and driven, and completely surrounded by those that did not look like her. So she did what a lot of women in those spaces do, and she found an outlet. What started as something just quietly for her became something that women everywhere wanted in on. A sold out launch, a brand with real momentum built entirely on community and word of mouth. She is such an inspiration. Let's get into it. Sabrina, welcome to Growth Strategy. Welcome to Growth Strategy. Whether you're scaling a business, thinking about starting a side hustle, or you're a stay-at-home parent ready to build even more in your life, this is for you. We challenge the roadblocks, reframe the obstacles, and give you real tools to start building a more intentional life. It takes a village. Welcome to ours. Sabrina, welcome to Growth Strategy. Hello,
Thank you
how are
for
you?
having me.
Of course. How are you feeling today? Are you excited? Are you stressed about?
Good.
Let's
I'm
see.
very energized today. I'm happy. I'm here in California and we have turned into spring already. So the sun is out. It's like going to be 78 degrees today. And I feel good. I feel really excited. I'm happy to be talking with you and happy to share my story.
Yes, so beautiful. We love the sun. Oh, yes, let's get into it. Okay, so you were at McKinsey for 4 years and you were the youngest manager in the firm history. And then you left. You had everything, you were building everything up, you were successful. What is the honest version of all of that and what was going on?
Yeah. Well, it's funny to hear it said like that, because it's not a stat I would typically tout myself. But for quick background, I think it's helpful to share. I studied both math and communications in my undergraduate degree. And when I was looking to join the workforce, I wasn't quite sure exactly where I wanted to spend my time, but I wanted to kind of pull together an analytical side and a people side. And so that's how I found myself at McKinsey in consulting. When I graduated, it was 2020 and we were in the middle of the pandemic. And so my first introduction to the real workforce was during COVID. I was working remote, living in San Francisco in this tiny, it must have been like a 500 square feet dark apartment. And it honestly felt like a cage. I had a really hard adjustment period in the first couple months. Not only was an adult on my own for the first time, but I was also learning how to work in this environment where everyone else was also trying to figure out how to work. And as soon as travel opened up, for those who are not familiar with consulting, before COVID, it was very normal. You should be expect to be on the road Monday through Thursday, every single week as a consultant. And you're basically helping any type of client solve some sort of business problem. And so during COVID, as soon as travel opened up, I was like, put me in, coach. I am ready to go. I got to get out of this apartment. And I was living with my husband then, boyfriend at the time. And so like I didn't feel I had real responsibilities or kids at home or anything like that. So I just went for it. And because I was able to build in-person relationships, I signed up for things that I otherwise wouldn't have. And we actually had a kind of shortage of talent and over demand of clients needing help during this crisis. There were so many opportunities. And so I think a lot of my success is circumstantial. And then the other part of it is just being hungry and saying, hey, yeah, throw me in. I see this opportunity. I want to try everything. And I really credit my growth to the mentors and sponsors that I had at the firm. Because of this crisis mode, I was thrown into the fire, into the deep end on projects I otherwise wouldn't have had the opportunity to work on. And I really just liked it. I liked the learning. And I had one mentor in particular kind of push me like, okay, you're ready for the next step. And at least at McKinsey, it's really considered a meritocracy. And so there aren't these kind of like clear ladder steps that you have to hit a certain number of months before you can get your next promotion. It's a very straightforward rubric that says, are you hitting these skills? Are clients trusting you? Are you building executive relationships, etc.? And if you are, you kind of like layer up and up and up. And my mentor, who was a partner at the firm, was like, you're over delivering. This is great. This is like the best news you could possibly hear, which means more work for you. And so
Yes.
he pushed me and he was like, how do you feel about managing? Um, and there's this kind of, it's pretty applicable, I think, outside of McKinsey, but, or I should say outside of consulting, but this idea that you should be demonstrating your future role before your promotion. And so, as easy as you can help the people who are responsible for your promotion understand that you're already ready to play that role, I think it really eases it. And so, he asked me, okay, do you want to start trying out these capabilities? And at least for managing, what it looked like when I didn't have a specific team, I would quote unquote manage a client relationship, or I would manage a project stream, or I would demonstrate these capabilities in some other way. And so I really just like built this up and up and up. And I remember there was a really hard project, and he was like, I think you should officially manage this one. I was like, no, no, I'm not ready. And he was like, just try it. And so we get in there, and he had kind of built out a team so that I would have a shadow manager and I would be kind of taking over. Well, the first week of the study was a complete disaster. The manager who was supposed to be managing was asked to leave the team for not handling things effectively. And that's just to demonstrate how cutthroat of a situation we were in.
Wow.
We're working with a new client, which is like code for like everyone be on your best behavior. And we're dealing with an M&A strategy. And I'm sitting here like, what? And I look at the team and I see I have an MD who's definitely more senior than me. There's an associate who's already gotten their MBA and is like 32. And then I have like a second year analyst. And I'm like, how am I supposed to manage these people with all this experience years and years ahead of me in my career? And this is where I think my mentorship relationship was really important. I called him, was like, okay, I can do it. And I'm going to have to lean into my style. And instead of trying to do things the other way the manager did it, I thought about what do I actually bring to the table,
Yep.
net additional to what the team also did. Tongue twister.
Yes.
So for me, that meant like bringing together unique insights from each individual person and not and trying to leverage their expertise as opposed to like trying to tell them exactly how to do everything. And I'm not gonna lie, the first project was pretty bumpy, but by really leaning into my relationships and the things that I thought that I was good at, it ended up working well. And I went on to get promoted that promotion cycle. And I will also share there's a lot of personal motivation for me. I will say like it took a lot of hard work and diligence and it was beyond just kind of an accident. Like I knew I was going to have to dial up my amount of work. But at the time my husband was just getting into medical school and we were moving to New York City. And I knew I'd be responsible for supporting our new family. So hitting the manager mark like meant a lot to us financially. And I just felt a lot of pressure on my shoulders as well to make sure that I was like leveling up and moving quickly. And so I think that a big combination of all of those things kind of pushed me into going after this goal really fast.
Hmm.
And once I kind of hit that stage gate, I actually just had so many more learnings and it was so much more fun for me and it felt really natural. But it took me took me a good investment to get there.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, that's so impressive. Okay, so so you have this huge amount of responsibility. You just moved to New York. Then what was the switch? What was your aha moment that you wanted to do something different?
So I think the first thing I want to say is I really loved my time in consulting. I think most of the time I was having a good time. I was kind of hungry. I liked being pushed a little out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Totally cool. You're like in these executive boardrooms wearing your kind of fancy suits and on planes, and it can be really exciting. And so, at least at the firm I was at, there's this kind of unspoken policy called up or out, which basically means if you're not getting promoted every 2 years, you're kind of asked to leave or kind of recommended
Mm.
go find another career path. And this is pretty common practice in finance, consulting, etc.
Yeah.
And so because I was promoted so early, this blessing kind of turned into like a timeline curse for me,
Mm.
where at the time, I'm like, how old was I? I think I was 26. At the time, I'm like 26, and I'm up for associate partner election.
Wow.
And when you go from manager to a partner, you prepare a set of papers, basically, and a platform. And the level of responsibility changes significantly in that you're not focused on just delivering the project work. You're also focused on building the firm, bringing work into the firm, leading multiple teams at once. And so it's a huge step change in
Yeah.
not only the responsibility, but also the type of work that you do. And so as I'm pulling together my program is what we called it. I was like, what do I want to be known for? What kind of work do I like to do? And what I was doing is helping clients build new business units. And I loved that work. But if I
Mm.
looked at where the future of the company, the firm was going, it was not in that direction. And I had a lot of counsel to say, like, that's not a viable platform.
Okay.
And so I kind of was at this decision point to say, okay, do I follow my heart and what I really like to do? Or do I kind of continue to push for the next promotion, which is close enough to what I like to do, but not exactly that? And because I was so young, I was 26, I thought, wow, I have like just fast tracked, steamrolled ahead into this amazing promotion. I'm looking down the pipe at a ton of money and a fancy title, but I didn't choose any of it. Like if I go back, I was this math communications major. I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. And everyone in my undergrad was going into consulting. And I thought, okay, this seems like a good way to apply my skills. I turned out to be really good at it, but I never really took a step back to shape my career. And so I had like a mini freak out, like, oh my gosh, like this is too much responsibility.
Quarter
I'm
life
not,
crisis.
yeah, I feel like I need to see the world before I come back and choose this. And I
Mhm.
think one beautiful thing about where I worked is it was really relationship based. And there's kind of an open line of communication. Like if you did well here and you go do something else, you can come back. You may have to interview, you may have to build new relationships, etc. But you can always come back.
Yeah.
And so I quit. And for the first year after that decision, I really regretted it. It felt like the absolute worst decision of my life. I had just gone from being a total stud rock star, knocking my job out of the park, making a ton of money, to working in a startup in a new role I'd never done before. Startup was not doing as amazingly as they said they were. I like felt completely lost. I felt like, wow, I took a step back from my big salary. I'm doing a job I'm not very good at. I'm underperforming. I don't know where my community is. And my whole sense of self-identity, I realized, had been wrapped up in my job. And because I was on the road Monday through Thursday every single week as a consultant, I really hadn't invested in building local community in New York. I didn't really have a routine with my friends. I just like didn't really have a foundation outside of my job. And I would like to have blamed, my next job for all those problems, but I think in reality it was a huge recalibration for me to think about what actually mattered to me and what did I want to do with my time, and how should I apply my skills. And so the whole next year was a bit of a rebuild year. And this is when, so I had already had my business idea, which like I should come to. I had that business idea while I was traveling for work. But this is when I really felt like I needed to lean into a creative project. And for me, Rohde Vene had been that creative outlet that I had developed while I was on the road traveling for work. And it started to become more than just a PowerPoint idea. I started actually following up on phone calls and asking manufacturers for their opinion. And I got to know this really amazing designer. And while I was struggling at my new job, I would kind of log off at the end of the day and turn around and open this portal to this amazing creative world where I was picking out fabrics and shapes and different textures. And I think that creative outlet helped me get through that period. And because in creative endeavors, there's not really a right or wrong answer. At least when I was in consulting, it was like, if this is the analysis, you're saving X millions of dollars. In a creative outlet, it's like, no, does this look good? Does it feel right? Do people like it? Does it connect? Does it say something? And that helped me find myself. And I Because of that, was inspired to go surround myself by more people who were kind of like on this journey, wanting to refine themselves, redefine their careers. And that's when I decided to apply to Stanford Business School. I had 4 weeks until the deadline. I had not taken the GMAT. I hadn't written any essays, but I was like, you know what? I'm entrepreneurial. I can do
Yes.
it. And I pretended like it was a consulting diligence project where I was already used to working these insane hours. Like, let me just work those hours for myself. I studied and I got it done, and I only applied to Stanford. Stanford campus is 20 minutes from where I grew up, and it's home for me. And it's very entrepreneurially oriented, and that's specifically what I was looking for. And so I think both of those stories tell me something about prioritization, like the idea to just, if you have a goal, like you can go ahead and sprint towards it. But when you put your head down to go do something, it's so easy to get locked in to the next greatest thing, the promotion, the prize at the end of it. And actually, in both of those, all I wanted to do was pull my head up and be like, what do I actually want to do? And so now that I'm here at Stanford Business School, I'm 2 quarters through my
Yay.
first year.
Yeah.
I've brought my business Rohde Vene with me, and I've been accepted to a couple accelerators here, which has been really great. But I've been able to just like breathe more and think more specifically around, okay, what do I care about? What do I want to do? And like give myself some of that space to think about that.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That is a journey, and that's a big. I love that it was your creative outlet though, and you didn't put any pressure on it to begin with. And then when did you start like reaching out to designers and reaching out to manufacturers? You have to think of a strategy plan in order to build a website. What was your transition in building that?
Yeah. So I get asked this question a lot. And for literally anybody listening, I would say just do the first step. For me, it was a slow journey. It took me 2 years before I launched my business. At the time, I was helping clients build new businesses, and we basically would start in PowerPoint and put together a playbook for them.
Mm.
And not to get too nerdy, but like there's kind of 3 tenets, and only 3 tenets you need for a good business: desirability, viability, and feasibility. And desirability is just, does the customer want it? Viability is, will they pay for it? And can you have a real business model? And feasibility is, can you make it? Can you do it? Or are you launching a rocket ship and like that's not happening? And so I built myself a pitch, a playbook, if you will. And I started to build a model, and I had this little financial model, and it was my toy. Like this was something that I just messed around with. And in my model, I had some assumptions. Okay, like it would cost, I don't know, X many dollars to produce this bag. And I'm like, how much would it cost? And so I just started calling people. And one call after another, finally I met a manufacturer who was like, yeah, it would cost this much. Do you want me to do it for you? And I was like, sure.
Let's try it
Sure,
out.
you
Yes.
should. And if I like go back to like why I started it and why this idea, I was traveling every single week for work, and I was in a super rigorous, analytical, buttoned up environment. And quite honestly, I was surrounded by a ton of men in their blue suits. I just felt like I'm this young, bubbly woman, and I don't really have a real way to express my personality. Like I was all suited up, and a bag just felt like the one thing that I could use to express myself. I was tying like little ribbons on my bag at that point. And I was really frustrated that I thought every single bag I wanted to buy for work was either really structured and masculine and functional, like the Toomey bags, for example,
Yeah.
or these beautiful designer bags that were way out of my budget, had skinny little straps, no pockets, and were too flashy for client services. So
Yeah.
like let me design one myself. And I asked a bunch of my women colleagues like, "Hey, what bags are you all getting? I just got this
Yeah.
promotion. I
Yeah.
need a new bag now that I'm leveling up." And they all said, "I have this one, but I don't like it. I have this, but XYZ is wrong with it." And so that kind of led me to understand there's desirability here. More people than just me want it. And after that, I collected a ton of user feedback from all my women colleagues on what they want in their ideal bag. I probably interviewed like 500 plus people
Wow.
and just said like, tell me what you want. And that is how I started with the design. And then that I found the manufacturer by just calling people. And one step after the other, 2 years later, I brought the bag to production.
That is so amazing. Like I mean, you just like led by genuine curiosity and just genuine excitement from it. And I think that's where like the biggest brands are built off of because like you're doing this full market research, even if it's just messaging your friends to start, like that is knowledge. That is data that you are collecting, that you are building that user experience off of, and then just building off of that of what you need. And I think that's also really important to say, like I work in a very male dominated field and having that creative outlet, but I can't turn off my brain. And like
Yeah.
my brain is going 24/7. So I want to be able to use that analytical brain for something fun too. And I think
Yeah.
that's where the creative outlet is super super powerful because it's almost like I don't know, it's for me it was almost like therapy. It's like kind of like your little it was a reprieve like self just as much as like working out like I mean, you can't take away from like working out or eating healthy, but it's for
Yeah.
me it was calming to calm my brain into a
Yeah.
creative way.
Yeah.
So, is that what
What creative hobbies?
I mean that's also why I restarted this podcast because
Yeah.
I'm so tired. I like the men that I work with are very nice, but also I can't relate to them about some things,
Yeah.
like so I'm an artist. Like I wanted it to be a designer. I was a dancer. I had my own dance company for many years and I did very well. I did very well at it. I had 4 different dance teams under me and it's just that freedom to express yourself,
Yeah.
but also creating the structure in it. It's just the most empowering thing that I think you can
And I think
it,
it's a fallacy that you have to be good at it to get started.
exactly.
I was not a designer. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
Like I worked with someone who taught me some things and I made choices and she used to here, I have one of the bags here.
Yeah.
She
Oh,
used
it's
to,
beautiful.
if you look at this, for example, like every little detail we thought about, this has this cute little angle that matches the rest of the angle of the bag. I'm
Yes.
very inspired by architecture and furniture, actually. When she presents this, it's like I work with a talented designer who has 15 years of experience. She helps translate my ideas to something that a manufacturer can make. But she'd ask, okay, here's option one, two, three. Here's an angle on this one, and this one's kind of curvy, etc. And you just kind of like look at it and choose. And I think a lot of art and design is just repeated choice and you kind of curating your own taste and your own style. And like to your point with art, like you don't really have to be good to get going, but as you get going, it gets better and it gets
Yeah.
better. And it's so fun.
It's so fun. And I think that also a really important point that you made was your community and your mentorships and just having those people around you because it can be very isolating when you are an entrepreneur doing things from home and just you're losing that human connection. So, how did you? It sounds like you've leveraged your community a lot in your career. I mean, you have researching 500 people before launching. So, like what is your mindset going into it that people that might be nervous or be introverted or like is this a silly thing to think of? Most people are very excited. I feel like when you talk and ask their opinion, they want to give their opinion, but
Yeah.
how do you approach that when you're looking for
Yeah.
more information?
Like,
Advice.
and how do I think about community, like just general support or like for customer engagement? Because I think of them maybe as
I would yeah, let's do the first one because I think it's that feeling supported by your community
yeah,
in general is what will give you like help give you
yeah.
confidence to keep going.
Totally agree. I mean, for one, it's my environment at least. I think that's part of the reason I left consulting, hungry to go look for another community or cohort of people. I'm somebody who likes to work. Some people don't, that's fine, but like work is a huge part of my life, and I've tried to decouple my identity from that work, but it is something that I enjoy. I find it energizing most of the time,
Mhm.
despite some of the hard challenges. And so if I'm going to be spending a majority of my hours a week working with and around people, like I do think if you're able to choose, choosing that environment matters a lot. The happiest I've been, the most creative I've been is when I've worked with the best teams, where we just kind of support one another. And the worst I've been has for sure been when I don't feel supported by different teams. So for me, that was an environmental thing, and I think that's part of the reason I applied to Stanford is I knew this community was going to be supportive, and so I kind of applied to join. I don't think you need, a business school or a job, et cetera, to have community. But for me, a majority of my time is spent there, and so that's important. I think on top of that, there's so much support and community in areas you don't expect. And actually, something that was really shocking when I launched my business, and people told me this, but I didn't feel it till I felt it. But you'd be surprised who your real friends are.
Yeah.
And I've had completely random out of the woodwork friends from high school, random shopkeepers, my first boss from the boutique I worked at when I was 16 years old come out and support me and help me stand up my business and give me ideas and just like give me kudos. Sometimes that's all you need. And some really close friends who I do my day-to-day life with like haven't necessarily contributed much. And that's okay. I think that that's totally fine. It's hard to have a lot of expectations on other people in your life, but I think that where community comes from is really surprising. And I think my other takeaway is your community will kind of project back what they view of themselves too. And so for people who are like really entrepreneurially oriented and excited about that, like they're going to fire you up. And for people who are really risk adverse, like they're not going to, they just won't.
Yeah, it is true. You have to be discerning in how you can take your advice with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Really good friends start their companies. And I do think, especially for early stage founders, there's this pressure to have it make it look like it's going so smoothly and sales are great and blah, blah, blah. But the reality is it's really bumpy. Like our first quarter was amazing. I'm like, oh my God, to the moon. And then like January was pretty slow. But if you like look at cyclical fashion seasons,
Yeah.
like that's okay. I mean,
Mhm.
that's when I'm getting on the phone, calling my other founder friend, being like, how are you handling this?
Yeah.
And that support matters a lot. It's like, let's just keep going. Let's keep going one day at a time.
Yeah. Okay, I know you're in a time crunch, so I want to
Oh,
be respectful of your time, but I let's leave with one final piece of advice. So for women listening or anyone who's listening, what in their voice in their head is just like they're so nervous to take that first step, even if it's just, researching online or taking the first call, sending the first email. What would you want them to know and what would you encourage them to do?
yeah, great question. So everyone's heard all the advice already. And so my only, you can research, you can look things up, especially with AI, you can do so much so quickly now. My advice is screw the research. Just do one thing. Like send an email to a real person, ask a question outside. Because I think the internet, AI, etc., this technical world kind of makes like a microcosm of an echo. And the real insights and the real business ideas and the real action happens when you talk to people and when you get their perspective on things and when you build relationships. Because if it can be found, if this business idea can be found through the internet, like it already exists. It's not new. You have to find something outside this world. And I think it can feel like a million steps to the finish line. But if the first step is send an email, like you can do that in 3 minutes from your phone. So just try to make those big steps, tiny steps, and try to do them out in the real world. Um, because I think there's a lot more magic out there than in the screens.
That's so beautiful. Yes. I love it so much. Sabrina, you are such a badass. You're so
Does not
so
always feel like that, by the
yeah,
way.
that's okay. I mean, that's normal that we all go through that, but you are. In my perspective, you are. So whatever it's worth. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for being on today.
Thanks for having me. This is so fun.
What an amazing conversation. Sabrina, if you're listening, I just want to say that this is exactly why I do this because there is something so amazing and powerful and beautiful about watching somebody take what started as something that's just theirs and turn it into something that belongs to a whole community of women. But the back's beautiful. And what you're building is permission for women to take up space, to bet on themselves, to stop shrinking in rooms that weren't designed for them. And every person needs to hear that. Like every woman needs to take the first steps because it is you're worth it. And if you want to follow Sabrina's journey, and trust me, you do, because she is doing amazing things, please find her on Instagram and TikTok at Rohde Vene. That is ROHDE.VENE and shop the collection at rohdevene.com. And if there's a waitlist, please get on it. It is worth it. Sabrina, thank you for being so open about your journey and so real today. This was genuinely so good. And to everybody listening, your outlet might just be your next chapter. So don't sleep on it. What is your next strategic move? I'm Alyssa Evans. This is Growth Strategy, and I will see you next week. Get more strategy at growyourstrategy.co. And that's a wrap on this episode of Growth Strategy. But before you go, I just wanted to say that I am so glad that you are here. This community is built on real people doing real things, and that includes you. So if something from today's episode hit home, save it, share it, or pass it along because it really does take a village. And if you're ready to grow even more, sign up for some more resources over at growyourstrategy.co. Follow us on social media at Grow Your Strategy, and we can keep cheering you on. Until next time, keep growing. Bye, friend.